like to welcome everybody to this week's episode of Views from the Field, and we have a very special guest, an old colleague and friend of mine who I've known for a few years, Alex Maizuss. Alex, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Allan.
Oh, my pleasure, our pleasure. Where are you at the moment?
In Los Angeles, California.
Okay, Los Angeles. Wonderful. What's the weather like?
Today I haven't been out yet, but I can sense a little bit of a sinus, so I'm thinking it's pretty humid out there.
Okay.
Yeah, a little
It's,
cool.
yeah, all right. It's a little different here in Zadar, Croatia. We had thunderstorms last night that brought in a cold front. So even though the leaves are coming out and it's spring, it's pretty cold out here today. I'd like to introduce you a little bit, if I might. You're a mindfulness teacher and performance coach, and former program manager for USC. I have to be careful as I say that because UCSD wants to come out, having spent so much time there. But you were at USC, Center for Mindfulness Science, and you're currently teaching MBSR as well as MPeak, which is mindful, for those who are watching who don't know, mindful performance enhancement, awareness, and knowledge at Insight LA, which is a wonderful organization. And you're also teaching at MSC, and your meditations are featured there and also in Mindful Magazine. Would you like to add anything towards that brief introduction?
No, that sounds beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, you're
Perfect.
welcome. All right, well then let's get right into what I like to call where it all began. You know, what inspired you, and with thoughts that this might inspire us and others who are watching. So how did you move into the mindfulness field? And feel free to go as far back into your life as you'd like.
Thank you. I love that. I will.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so for me, I think started pretty early in life. I was drawn into stillness and quietness very early on. Pretty much you will find me as a little kid climbed up on a tree, just listening to the leaves with the wind, and we could hear my mother and really far away just calling my name for lunch or breakfast, and I had to come down. So that was probably my one of my first experiences with just stillness and being in the moment and aware. And I think as a child, and most children are in the moment. And so as I grew up, I really yearned to be back in there in that place. And I grew up in the rainforest of Peru, very small little place,
Interesting.
very rural area. And so it was very quiet, and I could see a big difference when I moved into the bigger city later in life. I saw, how there was a big shift, and at least for me as a child, as coming from a place so close to nature. And so I think I started yearning going back there, and physically I probably couldn't, but I started looking for ways to go back, kind of go back home to that stillness and that quiet. And started with just first, prayer, religion, whatever was accessible to me. And then I was introduced to meditation vipassana by just having a little tiny book in high school that I would read every day and practice. I don't even know what it was. It was in Spanish. It was a little tiny pamphlet, and I would do the meditations there. And but I was in high school. I was really young, so I moved in and out of that practice. And then later on in life, I I think it was year 2000, around 2000, when I took my first, was it my first mindfulness class? Yeah, I think it was my first. Around there, I think is when I started really getting more into the practice. I I was seeing how I needed something else. I was graduating college, and I was an engineer, and there was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and I just continue that curiosity. Like, how do I go back home constantly? How do I come home? And that really has been the theme for me, just coming home over and over ever since I was little. And in '08, I went through a pretty rough time in my life, and I took my first MBSR class. And it changed my life. I became, it allowed me to develop that practice of being able to just have the discipline to really have a time, you know, specifically for the practice, something that I wasn't able to manage before. I practiced quite a bit, but it wasn't as, I think it wasn't as part of my life as it became after that. And also, I believe it allowed me to put it all together. MBSR allowed me to see that connection that I was seeing as a child, that, being connected to nature, seeing how we're all connected. And it just made a lot of sense to me. Just in my head, it just made a lot of sense. And so as I moved on through life, if I don't know if you want to know a little bit of how I got into teaching. I mean, I think I'm done kind of just talking about how I got into mindfulness. I think that was the beginning, yeah, of
Yeah,
everything.
I do, but I'm sitting with a question that I'd like to ask, and then we'll come right back to that is, can you identify an age where you made that shift as a child of like being home and then kind of moving away from that?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. For me, that started at 9.
9,
This is when
okay.
we made that big move from, being
Yeah,
in nature and free in the rainforest to the big city. So
yeah,
yeah,
okay, great.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
okay, so thank you. Let's come back right to teaching then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to hear it all.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so honored to share a little bit of my story with all of you. It's really beautiful to be here. So I'm so happy to share. But when I took that first MBSR class, and I actually took it through Inside LA, an organization that I teach for now. It's a nonprofit organization. And it's very interesting how life works, because when I took that class, it never crossed my mind that one day I would be teaching what I was learning, that curriculum. And I was just really fascinated by the practice, the structure and how it just all made sense to me. And so I became a practitioner first for a long time. I practiced for many years before I realized that that was changing my life in incredible ways. Just, I think for me was the curriculum itself. I mean, the attitudinal foundations for me were something that I decided to practice and take on as a practice, daily practice, oh, beginner's mind here. Am I trusting the moment? Am I striving? It was just a constant really thing in my life. And then I decided that I wanted to teach and really share this work with others. I was really passionate about it, and it took me a while to find where to go until I found UC San Diego, and I called, and I think this was just chance. I don't know what it was, but you answered the phone. I don't know how that happened. Um, and I talked to you for a little while, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, where do I start? How does this work? I'm looking at this site. There's all these things, and there you were embodying like mindfulness, just talking about the curriculum and the program, and it was really for me that was it. I was like, that's what I want to go, and this is who I want to mentor me, and this is who I want to learn from. And that was it. I was lucky, and I was just very fortunate that it all worked out, and yeah, you just that's how we met, and you became my mentor, and I still go back to those teachings really over and over again. Yeah, everything we learned to you, what you taught me. Yeah.
Yeah, you continue to teach me, and it's just so heartening to like look at your website and see how you've developed into a mindfulness center in a sense, in a very real sense, from your own centered practice. So It's been a pleasure. It's been a journey. I recall you used to have a bridge behind you that I used to love to see. Do you still use that, or is this the new background?
Oh my God, I can't believe you remember that. It's been so long. I
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning, and I was like, we have to talk about the bridge, talking about connection. Because you used to say to me every time we said for mentoring, you used to say to me, "Well, we're getting closer to crossing that bridge." I was so patient, right? I was
That's
preparing
right.
for, yeah, for finalizing my training.
Yeah.
I remember the last my last mentoring session was, I think we're
Yeah.
ready to cross that bridge. And I was like, yes. So that became a
Yeah.
thing. I still have it. I still have it. I
Yeah.
still use it from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've made it across, and here we are. So, tell me about the teachings now, because I'm curious how you see MBSR in relation to MPeak and the other programs and venues and populations that you're teaching to. All of that.
Yeah, I see it as a very beautiful synchronicity, really. I think it all works together. MBSR, I see that is, to me, is the core of everything. You know, I am so happy that I decided to start with MBSR, right? That's just a decision that I don't know how it happened because I was so new into how the structured mindfulness world worked. MBSR, I think, is the umbrella of everything. And from there to go into performance, you know, with MPeak, it's been a really interesting journey as well. Just how MPeak provided me some of the. I came because of MBSR and because I loved MBSR so much. I was so fascinated with all the practices and the length of the practices. And MPeak gave me a little bit of an opportunity to kind of modify that for corporate, to make the practice a little shorter, to focus maybe on what was holding people back from performing. So it integrates so many little things that just really are very important in that world. And I think I I didn't know how to do that on my own. You know, I think I'm just so such a MBSR. I call myself an MBSR practitioner. Really, I mean, it's just for me, the curriculum was so complete and everything that I couldn't see how all these pieces would work into performance, and just having all those different aspects of psychology and sports psychology and everything. And I know that you contributed a lot into that, into creating that curriculum as well. So yeah, I see a lot of synchronicity at the same time. It just makes it so much easier, I think, when it's corporate to be able to create shorter, shorter curriculums from that when I've needed. So it's been
Yeah.
really great.
Wonderful. I was part of the development of it very early on, and then Pete Kirchmer took it over and really has created something very beautiful and much deeper, I imagine. I haven't actually seen the program in a while. So you probably now have a sense of the development of it as it now exists. And an interesting story, early on, we were working with MBX bikers, who were racing bikes down a 40-foot ramp at the Olympic Training Center, trying to determine where the sweet spot is that enhances performance. So we thought it was at the starting gate because the races are run and lost at the start as the bar that holds them in place drops, and it's just hundredths of a second that make a difference as to who's going to win after 2 laps around the track. Turned out the sweet spot was when, at least as told to me and identified by me, was when they were carrying the bikes up the stairway to the top of the ramp before they ever got on the bike to get ready to start. What were they thinking about? What were they going through as they were climbing the stairway? Were they present? So this is a lead into the question I have for you. In your work with MPeak in corporations and coaching, how do you identify that sweet spot for the corporate world or the individual you're coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you so much, yeah, for mentioning also the work that Pete has done after that,
Uh,
because yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree. He's a
yeah.
great mentor as well. But I feel like it's pretty individual. I wish I could measure it. I wish I could see where that sweet spot is for people in general. But I think the way I see it is that everybody just comes in from their own journey, and it's just it varies. It varies for some people. It could be, the preparation. If they're looking into a competition, it could be preparing, as you were saying, that before. And what I've seen in corporate mainly is being that there's a kind of like a fine line between that sweet spot and overworking themselves. So this is the non-striving part of things that, that people start striving, and I think we all do it, and we all do it in our careers or whatever we're doing. And I think when that happens, they kind of just miss that the point, the threshold that is going to allow them to kind of excel. And so for me it's very individual. It's what I've observed, very individually, but I think it has a lot to do with the moment that we get caught up in the story of where we're getting to. I think that really gets on the
Interesting.
way of missing that sweet spot into into performing their best, or into actually being present even, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, beautiful. So getting out of our own way, getting out of our story. There's a lot to that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the venue of the corporate world, and you have MBSR and MPeak. What other populations, venues, coaching are you involved in?
Yeah, so I do some work for entertainment, and so artists, actors, high profile lawyers, and this is more on a one basis. And again, I think it's because I believe in it. It's just I've seen what I've done in my life, MBSR. I've seen what the curriculum can do, and so what I've done is
Mm-hmm.
when I work with people one-on-one, I'll just take little parts, like just like what we're doing. It's just to me so inspiring, just saying like, there's a little bit of striving here. Let's see if we can check that out. What's happening here? What would it take for you to trust a little more? So this is all my work with individuals in the entertainment industry, or high profile lawyers, or people that just have a lot of stress in their lives. And then I also do, I believe a lot in service, in just offering this work freely as well. And so I try to do quite a bit too. And so I have a connection with the cancer community here, the support is Cancer Support Community Center in Los Angeles, and I've been just working with them for many years and offering curriculums that adjust to what they need. So I think
Right.
creating curriculum has become a really interesting part for me. I think MBSR just gives us so many tools for even doing other things and applying it to many different areas. So with the Cancer Support Community Center, we just kind of see what is needed. Sometimes the sessions are a little shorter, and of course we don't call it MBSR, it's just mindfulness for beginners or mindfulness. But yeah, but that's really helped a lot, and everything started when I lost my father a few years back, and
I'm
me being
sorry.
a practitioner, thank you, me being a practitioner, I think helped so much holding that space. And then I thought, maybe there are others out there that could benefit from this work. And I've just been very fortunate that, that these things have manifested for me in a lot of ways. So been very blessed.
Yeah. Well, they're
Yeah.
blessed to have you.
Thank you.
Are you teaching in Spanish at all
Yes.
these days? Yes?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Wow. I can't believe you remember so much. Well, the accent, I guess,
Oh,
gives you said away, but
oh,
yes, yes,
yeah.
I am. And so I started with underserved communities in Los Angeles. I think that's how my work started. I was still working as an engineer, and I wanted to offer this work to others. And for me, it was mainly underserved communities. I couldn't afford to take the 8-week classes. I couldn't afford it. So I used to drive around LA and just teach all these different places. And in Spanish, I started with children, and then it moved on into just adults and different communities that were needing this. So I still do offer MBSR in Spanish and also work privately in Spanish. And I support a global, sorry that I'm touching my face quite a bit, but I feel like there's a little bit of hair in my face. So
That's okay.
I just find myself doing this. And with the Spanish, but it's been really incredible work to be able to just bring it to communities that couldn't afford it, but as well as also being able to teach the entire curriculum in this way. It's been a real blessing. So I do that. I've also recorded for Mindful USC in Spanish for the university, just because there's a lot of Spanish. It's in an area, and so if you're not from this area, from Los Angeles, and you're listening to this, it's in a community that is surrounded by, people that might not have access to things like this. It's downtown Los Angeles and areas that might not be as aware of this work. And so just being able to offer these recordings even in Spanish has been really great. And just being able to offer the entire curriculum in Spanish has been really great too. And it reminds me of a little side note that I was offering this program, I remember, and I had our curriculum in English. And somebody had asked me to, if I wanted to share the curriculum, thinking that I had it in Spanish. And I was like, I don't have it in Spanish. And they're like, how are you teaching it? I said, here, I practice it and I just teach it. And then that was they just laughed. They're like, well, you don't have the curriculum in Spanish. I said, no, I just kind of teach it from English, and I just kind of know it. And so it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's been really work to just to be able to teach it teaching from the heart, just comes out.
Yes, that's a great teaching point. So you didn't need the curriculum. You already were the curriculum and had it, and just vocalized it in Spanish. You brought up this point of people watching in different areas, and it has me wondering if there is a community of Spanish-speaking teachers, mindfulness teachers, that you might know of. I know of a couple, but do you know of one that you belong to that others might connect with if they were interested in becoming part of a Spanish-speaking community?
As participants, the only community that I know that has Spanish-speaking teachers right now will be inside LA, that has their mindfulness sessions. As MBSR trained practitioners, I like to say, or teachers, I don't really know any other teachers yet that might have groups. I know some of them created during John Kabat-Zinn's retreat all over the world, but I'm not aware if they're still happening. So
yeah, we have a few at UCSD, and Sophia Porter Weber, who is often on our sessions here on Zoom, I believe has a website. And then there's Lizette Attal. I'm going to mispronounce Lizette's last name, but I'm going to say Attal. And unfortunately, we lost, I don't know if you knew Luis Morones.
I know of him. I knew of him. I never met him, but I knew of him. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Thank you. A beautiful human being that passed a few months back and was very active in the Spanish-speaking community in the Bay Area of San Diego and San Diego itself. Okay, well, Spanish, English, MPeak, MBSR, Cancer Center. This is why I'm saying you, in essence, are your own center. How does that feel? Being independent, but yet connected, and then having your website offering your programs. And I ask this because very often with the people that I mentor, I advise them to, as they're starting out, maybe they're just getting out of training for MBSR, to think of themselves as their own mindfulness center, because in essence we are the center of our center, coming off the cushion and offering this out into the world. And the more we place ourselves in that I am frame of mind, then the more we manifest towards that. So you have done that, and I'm wondering now how you feel about that, how you think of that.
Oh, that's so beautiful how you said it. I never thought about it in that way, actually. I think how I feel about it, I'm just so grateful. I look back and I just go, I just don't know how all this happened. And I think it's just been a lot of really great guidance on the way that has allowed me to really manifest or just connect in this way with groups that have, seen that maybe I could in some way support them. And so I think it just has a lot to do for me with just being grateful for all the guidance I've gotten, including yours, which was my start, really. So yeah, and I think I keep going back to that. Just having that support is so important into seeing what we can do with this work. And I think practice for me has been really big. So I'm grateful so that I can make it a commitment in my life to really practice and to be a practitioner before I even think about teaching or being anything else. I think that's, for me, it's just, you used to say, teaching is more about learning, Alex. And this is one of my first lessons. And the biggest thing I've ever learned is that it wasn't about teaching so much, but learning. So I think the idea of being a center it just evolves. It just evolves. And I love how you put it and what you said about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to play any role in it, but I think you were already there, ages 0 to 9.
Well, you brought it out of me in some way. You made
No,
me to
no,
see it more clearly, for sure.
no. You, as we talked about earlier, maybe let go and move back home to it. So
Thank you.
happy to have played any role that I might have. So as you move forward and create and grow in this field, and you continue, how do you view yourself 20, 25 years from now? How do you view the field 20, 25 years from now?
That's such an interesting question. I could just say I never think that far ahead, but I guess
Well, let's come closer to home. As far towards the actual present moment we're in. Let's step back a little. We can drop the time frame completely. Just where is this all headed?
Yeah, I love the question. I definitely love the question. It gives me something to think about. I think for me, maybe just continuing to grow in the practice. I've expanded my practice a little more now into learning, as I'd like to call it, the behind the scenes. Reading more about Dharma and learning more about the Dharma. It's been a really great support in the practice for me. Something that I actually started in college, but I didn't put any of these things together, like I said, and I've gone back to just really learning the core of the practice and just being able to practice in a way that is more connected and it goes deeper, at least in my experience, just knowing the background and knowing all the other practices that come into play. So that's been one of my, I think it's one of my, I will say, projection of where I think I might be going, and learning more, growing a little more, and being able to, again, share that with whoever's interested in learning a little more. But and as far as where I might see mindfulness going, I think I really honestly believe that is the answer to just about anything. I mean, from environmental problems, to injustice. I see it in my own life, and just to have that amount of awareness and to notice when something crosses my mind that I'm not very proud of.
Mm,
I just go, okay, I see you there. And maybe not act on it, maybe the thing I want to say, or, the reaction I want to have to someone. And I think if we talk about world peace, for me, that's an incredible component to have that self-awareness that it takes work, but it's the more we practice, the more I think the more we develop this sense of knowing that our core is really pure and peace, peaceful. And it's not really everything else is an addition. And if we see that, then it's a lot easier for us to navigate life and hopefully to add to a better world, a more compassionate, kinder place. So, yeah.
yeah. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Oh, well, Alex, such a pleasure to be with you and have a chance to hear where you've been, where you are, and what you would like to see. And I'd like to open it up to our group a little bit, who are gathered here online on Zoom as we're filming this.
Yeah, no, thank you, Alex. It was great listening to your story and all you do. I really admire and respect all that you're doing, because it's sort of is like I am an independent and mindfulness, mostly MBSR, but other programs. But I've been affiliated with different places, including a nonprofit for integrative cancer care. So my question has more to do. So I'm assuming that you do have your own independent. You're not on salary employed by somebody, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So and you're getting the trend that I've heard from many other teachers as well, but in my life, is that we're having harder time filling our classes. There's many more opportunities out there, I guess, for people to do things, whatever the reasons. But I'm wondering if your experience is similar to that. Are you having more difficulty either setting up classes or getting them filled, the ones you used to fill it fairly easily?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Gus, for that question. I feel like now that everything is opened up and there's so many more options with the pandemic and everything, it's gotten a lot more difficult to fill in classes for sure. I Most of the group classes that I offer, I've been blessed to be through organizations. And so these organizations do a lot of the work that I luckily don't have to do. They filling in the classes and doing the marketing and making sure that the word is out there. And that's been really helpful for me. And it's something that I just happened to stumble upon, but I would say for anyone that's trying to have their classes, like, have groups, I would say at the beginning, maybe going through organizations is just a good thing while we get our names out. Well, until people really knows us enough that we can book our own groups, because it could be a little challenging. Yeah. And I often people say, "What's your Instagram?" They ask me, "What's your Instagram?" And I say, I don't have any followers. I don't have time. I'm working. I'm teaching." And so, the social media is one of those things that I think is how people are able now to promote themselves. I don't really, like I said, don't have the time to spend in there. But if anything, I see that social media is really, really helpful for a lot of people as well, if I may say. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Did I?
And yes, it does for sure. It's just similar to our experience here. I'm in South Florida, by the way. But how about the organizations? Are they offering less classes, and or are their classes they're offering also less filled? In other words, are they also having a hard time, or is it individuals like us only? If you have a sense for that.
I have a sense that that's also among organizations. I have a sense that that's happening. It's getting tougher. It's gotten tougher to fill in the classes. There's just a lot offered right now, I think, online. Yeah. So yes.
Thank you, Gus. Mark.
Thanks for sharing so much of yourself today, this morning, this evening, Alex. I was fascinated as soon as you started talking about your experiences as a young child, sitting up in a tree and simply being with nature way back at that part of your life. And then to hear that you've also then brought it forward and started engaging and teaching with youngsters also. So, and then as Allan was asking questions and you guys were having the conversation, I'm landing on, what might you tell your pre-9-year-old self from this perspective now, in a way that, because here you are now bringing forward everything that you've described, well, the way you've described it to us, but you're bringing much more than that forward. What would you maybe want to tell somebody like that, whether you want to share it with us or not? I'm just curious, because what I get a sense is a full embodiment of some sense here. It's not about putting an acronym around something, whether it's MPeak or MBSR or MSC or something. There's something else here that you're bringing forward. And you kind of described it as like, I can pull different aspects into what's needed now. So it's just a lot of curiosity in that.
It's just such a deep, wonderful question. Thank you so much for that. I think I'll have to ask my 9-year-old, and so let me have 1 second to ask her. What was she? How did she feel back then? And I think something that I might want to share, so for little ones out there, in particular, is that it'll all make sense. It's just it all makes sense. There's a point in which I think things happen and change happens, and change is often constant, and learning about that, I think early on it's one of the biggest things. And I think for me it was very marked, very obvious that there was a lot of changes, a lot of stress moving into a big city, but it all makes sense at the end, and it's all a learning process. And yeah, and if they can just learn to kind of go out and play and embrace and, find nature, I think that they'll be just fine. They'll keep coming home. Yeah, thank you.
That's beautiful that they'll keep coming home. Yeah. It's so important for us now, for me to hear that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think, Alex, can you stay with us a little bit? Okay,
Absolutely.
wonderful. All right, so we'll pause here in a moment, but I want to let everybody know that we'll have your website posted below in the video description. And again, thank you so much for being here. It's such a joy to sit with you and see you again in this way. And anybody who's watching this and inspired, if you would like to support our work, there is a place also in the description for a small donation if you'd like to contribute, and we're very grateful for that. So thank you, and we'll see you back next week for our next session of Views from the Field. Thank you again,
Thank
Alex.
you. Thank you. Great honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Click down below to join our Mindfulness Teacher Community Facebook group, where you're also invited to post and share. Also, subscribe to Sing to the Mountain Studio so you don't miss out on future recordings of live sessions.